All right, guys. Justin James here with the 10-7. You're one sleep away from this incredible matchup. And I'm talking about Arman Tsarukyan taking on Dan Hooker. And guys, I know a lot of people have a lot of opinions on this. I've been watching a lot of footage on these guys. Both of these guys are freaking animals. And I tell you what, Dan Hooker, we're going to get to Dan Hooker right away. Dan Hooker has been in the UFC since 2014. Can you believe it? This guy has been in the UFC for almost 12 years. All right, let's pull him up. I didn't realize that, man. I was in college. I was just graduating college. I think I turned professional in 2013. We're looking at Dan Hooker, 24-12. He's had 36 MMA bouts. He's only 35 years old. He's younger than me. He's a lightweight. Hasn't fought in 25 yet. On a 3-fight win streak. Currently ranked 13th. 11 wins by KO, 7 wins by submission, 6 by decision, 14-8. This guy has fought a lot more than I realized, I'll be honest. He's fought a lot of good guys. Gamrot, Jalen Turner, incredible striker. Islam Makhachev, Mike Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Paul Felder, Iaquinta, James Vick, Edson Barboza, Gilbert Burns, Jim Miller. This guy has been around for a really long time, and he has fought a lot of good guys, man. Great resume Dan Hooker has. And, when I think of Dan Hooker, I think of a long, rangy striker. But, I want to go back on that. I'm going to take that back. I'm not just going to classify him as a long, rangy striker. Dan Hooker has some incredible ground and pound. He has nasty elbows from the top, and he has a nasty guillotine that he's found several times, even in the UFC. If you give up your neck, Dan Hooker will snatch it, and he will pull guard to finish that guard. Now, taking on to his opposition, Arman Tsarukyan. Coming in this competition, 22 wins, 3 losses. Much younger, 29 years old. He's on a 4-fight win streak. Currently ranked number 3 in the UFC. 9 KOs, 5 submissions, 8 decisions, 9-2 in the UFC. Beat some pretty tough guys. Beat Benson Henson grappling, Pitbull grappling. But let's talk about MMA. Charles Oliveira, split decision. Charles Oliveira, one of the greatest lightweights we've ever had. Neil Dariush didn't look great in his last. Joaquin Silva. And this is Matt Favola, Islam Makhachev. I see that, he had some good wins. Don't get me wrong. His UFC debut in 2019, Islam Makhachev. Talk about tough. Loses decision, performance of the night bonus. Tough UFC debut there. But I don't know who this guy is. Davey Ramos. I don't know who this guy is. Matt Favola. The only reason I know who Matt is because I took his spot when I filled in for the UFC. Don't know who this is. Gamrot, I know who that is, and he lost. Don't know who this is. He won. Silva, not too familiar with Silva. Neil Dariush, yes, I know who he is. A little old. Charles Oliveira, this is obviously his most credible win, but a lot of these guys I don't know. I'm not saying Tsarukyan is a bad fighter. He's an incredible fighter. Don't get me wrong. Anybody that can go toe-to-toe with Charles Oliveira and win a decision, incredible. Coming in, Dan Hooker. All right, guys, let's see how the odds makers have it. All right, here we go. Before I look, I think Arman will be a minus 210. Minus 210. Dan Hooker will be on the other side of that. Arman's going to be a slight favorite here. Whoa, way off. Way off. Way off. We have the number 3 UFC lightweight going against the 13 UFC lightweight. Arman Tsarukyan had trouble making weight in his last fight. I think I made a video about that a couple months back. to talk about being, for Dan Hooker to be a plus 430 dog. Man, I see Arman, he has, youth on him. He hasn't been in the UFC as long. Dan Hooker's, like I said, been in the UFC since 2014. Dan Hooker, man, when I was watching Dan Hooker's fights, he has fights before the UFC stopped letting you have your own sponsor. So, like, in some of his early fights in the UFC, he had traditional shorts with his own sponsors before Reebok, before Venom, before all that. Like, this guy has been around for a long time, and I think the odds makers are really, man, they're kind of slapping him in the face here. Huge favorite. I mean, Dan Hooker, he's had his ups and downs in his career. He's a great rangy striker. He has incredible elbows. He does incredible damage with elbows. If he gets on top of you, Dan Hooker is crazy. And like I said at the beginning of the video, a lot of guys consider Dan Hooker strictly a striker. He's not a striker. He is an MMA fighter. This guy can wrestle. This guy can grapple. This guy, he can do it all. He can do it all, man. And He's had some great knockouts through the years, has some great ground and pound, has some great submissions. I'm going to go against the grain here, guys. Arman, he's coming into this red hot. Everyone thinks it's going to be a walkthrough fight. The odds makers think it's going to be a walkthrough fight. I'm going with Dan Hooker. I really like the guy. I love his interviews. I love his personality. He's on a win streak right now. I think he's going to maintain. I think he's a huge dog in this fight. But man, I mean, he can put an incredible game plan together and weather the storm of Arman. Like, I could see him catching a guillotine here. You got to see Dan Hooker has an incredible guillotine. He does it right-handed and left-handed. He's done it time and time again. If he catches that neck, he can put you to sleep. He's shown it time and time again. Let me take a look. Dan Hooker has 7 wins by submission. I'm sure the guillotine being, in the couple fights that I've saw that he finished with guillotine, like, that's his favorite submission. Tsarukyan's going to shoot in. He might be able to catch that neck. I'm taking Dan Hooker, and if you don't like it, kiss my ass. Tell me what you think in the comments, guys.